Starting in about 5 or 6 minutes or so. We're just going to wait a few minutes. I'm not entirely clear if Evan is going to be making his way into the room, so we'll just give him a few minutes. He did say that he would not be able to make the entire show here, so he might not come on until later, just for that heads up. But we'll just go ahead and wait a few more minutes, so please enjoy the tunes in the meantime. All right, I think I'm kind of sick of waiting here, so let's go ahead and get started with this Lightning Friday episode, podcast thing, whatever you want to call this thing. And we're talking about those fantastic assholes that we all love, Chainalysis. Before we actually get into the show today, I want to go ahead and introduce the co-hosts on Lightning Friday. I am Chaz from Lightning Junkies podcast, as you might know. We have Jestopher. He is from Amboss.space. How are you doing today, Jestopher?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, all over the place as usual, but, kind of good overall here.
Nice. Glad to hear it. I'm excited about the topic. Chainalysis has been it's been kind of up and coming, kind of this like growing force that people are afraid of. But I think this technology is still developing, and it's moving quickly. So my big question is, will anyone be able to keep up with us and our development?
Well, before we jump into all that, I also want to make sure that everyone knows that our third co-host is Evan Kaludis, the dude over from Zeus Wallet, making that magic happen over there. But yeah, absolutely. So kind of just to give everyone that might be listening to this now or later some background. So earlier this week, Chainalysis came out in support of the Lightning Network. And, on Twitter, a lot of people were very upset about that and basically went on to that Twitter thread to tell them to go fuck themselves, primarily. There was some other, less toxic content saying, asking some real questions, whatever. But Chainalysis just didn't want to mess with the Bitcoiners at all, the toxic ones and non-toxic ones. So basically hid all of the replies from that thread. So, they wouldn't have to broach this kind of more difficult topic with, anyone on Twitter. They just said, here's the information. We're not going to deal with it. Bye. And so, they kind of announced their support, quote unquote, of Lightning. And so, from my opinion, I think it's mostly bullshit at this stage, especially that it's mainly like a PR move on their part, and they're trying to capitalize on that PR move, maybe for some IRS contract or some other kind of governmental setup situation. But it overall, if I were to really guess, like in the field, foot on the ground, tracking of the transactions, I think they're probably useless at this point. What do you think?
So actually, maybe that's a good place to start. Like, who are the customers of Chainalysis? Who is interested in the information on Bitcoin or the Lightning Network? Like,
Right.
who are the people that would be funding these operations?
So yeah, like I think that's a pretty good question to ask. And I actually have worked at exchanges for years now, so I feel like maybe I have some good experience in that area. So without naming names, I've dealt with the compliance side of exchanges for a while. I absolutely hate dealing with them, simply because they have their own MO. They're not about financial freedom. They're about protecting the business from legal ramifications and things like that, right? So a very naive compliance team, or whoever might be like an executive on that side, is most likely to be very naive, and they're going to have a list of things they have to do according to the regulator. And one of those things is Chainalysis, is trying to get as much information about what your customers are doing as possible. Because if you have a scammer or someone that's stealing identity, or sending Bitcoin straight to a darknet market, then that business, whatever the business might be, is liable. So that's a very good reason why an exchange and other similar business where they actually hold customer funds are basically required to do stuff like this. I actually worked at an exchange previously who tried their best to like not take on Chainalysis, but eventually they took it on. I don't know the exact reasons and exactly who kind of applied pressure there, but this was an exchange who fights back regularly against governmental oversight, and tries their best to not let things keep pushing in that direction. And even they had to fold and add Chainalysis. Now, most of the time, like that I'm seeing Chainalysis used, it is used in that way of using it for, are they sending to a darknet market? Are they sending to a Bitcoin address that's been marked under OFAC? Things like that. So generally speaking, this doesn't really affect 99.99% of people. But I think the reason why we as Bitcoiners care so much is the potential for that to be used by, not exchanges, and other, governmental power structures. So it may not matter quite so much in the United States. Obviously, we do care here. But I think the far scarier thing might be in places where the oppressive governmental regimes aren't so nice, aren't so restricted from their kind of activity. It's all out in the open, and they'll do whatever the fuck they want. But long story short, exchanges are the primary customer of Chainalysis at this point, to answer your question.
Well, that makes sense. So there's like the government regulation that says like you have to be able to know your customers and also be able to stop anti-money laundering. And the ways that you go about the anti-money laundering from this regulation is to say we need to make sure that you aren't paying that you're not doing a whole bunch of mixing of funds using these more privacy preserving technologies, and also it's not going to like terrorist organizations, which is from the OFAC list is my understanding. So the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So like basically you can't you're not going to be sending money to Iran or anyone on a sanction list. So we don't want you sending money to those places. And so because they can't directly control like where you're sending the money or stop you, since we're using this very censorship resistant currency, what they do is like lock your account or that type of thing, or force these exchanges to take those activities on. And of course that, like, I think that would be useful information on who these people are from like a tax perspective. So they want the IRS to be able to say, oh, you've got this amount of Bitcoin, and this is a taxable event, and you better pay your taxes. So,
right.
Yeah. With this, now, like we've got Bitcoin, which like each coin has a history. So you can look on a block explorer and see, you know, what sort of history each of these coins has. But do you have a good sense of like how they determine, you know, what's a good activity and what's a nefarious activity?
So from my experience working at exchanges, my sense is that Chainalysis is kind of a pile of garbage in real life. That it tends, like, I tend to see a lot of false positives from it, from, you know, someone that's withdrawing to their own wallet and getting flagged for gambling or stuff like that. I actually see gambling come up more than anything else as the flag. I think what they basically do is something called clustering. This is probably more of the kind of old style that they used to do. They might have gotten better and have more technology, but I'm not entirely convinced of that. But clustering basically where if your UTXO touches this other UTXO, they have some kind of algorithm or some kind of you know, they make their determination with whatever math they have on their side, and say we have a, you know, 86% probability that this is, you know, going to a darknet market or going to a gambling, you know, exchange or whatever. And so I think in real terms, like on exchanges, I don't think Chainalysis really comes into play. Maybe it happens at the kind of higher volume exchanges. Maybe Binance, maybe not Binance, but maybe Coinbase is what I meant. Is doing more of this. As most people know, Coinbase previously bought a Chainalysis company that had connections to kind of less reputable hacking software. So they're not very well liked over there. But it's my general understanding that their tools aren't that robust, that they're kind of very basic. And yeah, that's kind of my general understanding, that it's very basic. You kind of have to kind of know what you're already looking for. So you need to know that, you know, you're marking these sets of UTXOs as, you know, Coinbase, for example. So they have like a Coinbase cluster. They might have a Binance cluster. So they know when you're sending to one exchange or the other. They know when you're probably sending to your own wallet. You know, Samurai Wallet is a piece of software that has helped to kind of break their basic heuristics, which they've the team from Samurai has made it clear for years at this point that their shit is so basic You just gotta just change around some of your basic transaction modalities or transaction, like just the way that you transact. So the amount of inputs and outputs, if you change those around and you had, more outputs, maybe more inputs, you'll do what is called a stonewall transaction from Samurai. So again, I think their heuristics are so basic. Most of their business is standing on top of that, of the ignorance of that fact. Compliance teams are basically required to have this kind of blockchain analysis. So they hired these guys not knowing that they're basically useless in real world terms.
So, what they're being asked to do is basically be able to trace these funds as they and identify what's a spend and what's a change output, and where these funds are going, and try and determine by clustering what types of activities like this is these funds are engaged in. So if it's a whole bunch of you said maybe this is the Binance cluster. So what do you think these Chainalysis companies use? Do they have like an XPub to like a public key to all of these exchange addresses, or what's happening here? Are they just looking at, are these groups of funds spent at the same time, or are there certain patterns?
I think that there are certain patterns, and they might even resort to doing dust attacks. Excuse me. So that things like that could help them to kind of track where certain flows of money are headed. So obviously, an exchange like Binance keeps a hot wallet for Bitcoin, and so just to kind of point out here that they also do Chainalysis on other chains, and Ethereum, for example, is a much easier chain to do that Chainalysis on because it's an account-based system instead of Bitcoin being a UTXO-based. So it's a little bit harder on Bitcoin since you kind of have to cluster them. You have to figure out a way to have a have an amount of confidence that UTXO-A and UTXO-B are connected in some way, either by kind of going back through their histories and finding like a common association, or associations of other UTXOs that if the UTXO that we have at the most recent one has a connection way back when that doesn't connect with Binance, but it may connect with another customer that has a connection with Binance, let's say. So they kind of cluster, I think. I don't know this specifically. I'm just kind of looking at my job and kind of working backwards, but it seems like they cluster by those sorts of things, by dust attacks, by kind of maybe even sending money themselves and seeing if they can figure out what set of UTXOs is the Binance wallet, basically, or the Coinbase wallet, and go from there. Like there was this tool that I used years ago. I cannot remember it for the life of me, but it was basically Chainalysis, but anyone could use it. You basically went on there and they had a bunch of like UTXOs labeled automatically. So you could go back and look at when Tim Draper bought all the Bitcoin from Silk Road. It has that transaction labeled. It has all the UTXOs labeled. So you can see where he sent it to his multi-sig in 2015, I think. So it could be stuff as simple as that, just labeling the things that and then doing things like dust attacks and other techniques to kind of get more granular information.
So it sounds like they're maintaining this big database of, okay, the funds went from here and then they went to here, and I think this this cluster is like this type of behavior, and this one is gambling, and so on. And just maintaining a database and kind of tracing these things with probabilities. So,
Exactly.
so what do like generally what do people do to like fight against Chainalysis? Because like maybe I'll just frame it this way, that Bitcoin, since each UTXO has a history, the concern is that these coins are not fungible, because so that would be a big problem from like a money perspective. Like maybe I am willing to pay more for clean coins than I am for ones with checkered history, or ones that have been used at all.
Right. So I think the answer is pretty much what I had already mentioned with Samurai. It's to kind of do different things to kind of throw off their very basic heuristics. Because, yeah, like I was saying earlier, their heuristics are very basic. It's label this, cluster all these UTXOs that touched each other, that. So it seems to me that there's a lot of different ways to do that. One could be to buy non-KYC Bitcoin and to make sure to kind of transact in a very aware way. So, using BISC or, mining from home are two easy ways to do that. Or, like you just mentioned, some Bitcoin are more fungible than others. So, or yeah, more fungible than others. So you might go buy Bitcoin directly from a miner, so it has no history. So then you can kind of make sure to do your due diligence to make sure it doesn't get a history, or if it does, to take, the right steps to make sure that you're not, what's that word? You have toxic change, or you might have, otherwise have not the best Bitcoin possible, as it were, kind of less than ideal there.
Right. And so what I've seen come out is, so there's Samurai's Whirlpool, and then they also have that they've got Stonewall transactions. They also have Ricochet transactions. And then on maybe the Wasabi side, kind of a general collaborative spend is maybe what I would call it. Do you want to talk about any of those other ones? Maybe we can start with Ricochet. So like when I'm looking at the blockchain and I'm watching these UTXOs move around, like how many transactions back am I looking at the history and figuring out, okay, where's this nefarious activity?
Right. So I think to kind of address that last point here first, like back in the day, people used to say, Coinbase doesn't look more than X amount of hops away. So make sure to, send to a wallet, then send to a wallet, then send to a wallet, then send to your actual destination or something like that. But yeah, Ricochet basically does something very similar automatically. So you don't need to do kind of extra work. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I was just agreeing with you. So I guess yeah, my understanding of Ricochet is it is kind of going to extend the path where a Chainalysis company would have to kind of examine the history, because if you're only looking one transaction back, you're going to find some information, but then it becomes exponentially harder, because like all of these different traces, these paths that could have been taken, I imagine that gets a whole lot more confusing as you look further into the history.
Absolutely. I think something to point out here is, I mean, something that we've all already pointed out, but just to repeat it here, like Chainalysis and some similar companies use, probabilities. Like, so when you can begin to introduce a reduction in their ability to be, sure that their probabilities are leading them in the right direction, it seems like I'm not a complete expert here, but it seems like once you throw a spanner into the works, it's only going to be harder for them, and it's only going to get harder from there. So if you're, let's say you start your entire Bitcoin journey in the best practice path here. So maybe you start with Samurai, you set up your dojo, you set up Whirlpool, you get up on Join Market, whatever else. There's a bunch we could list here right now that do swaps and coin joins like things, etc. But I think it's anything that throws off their basic analysis. Their analysis is so basic that if you can drop an 80% probability to a 40% probability, then you've made it that much more useless. That if you work at an exchange and you're given a 40% probability that your customer is doing something that they shouldn't be, are you going to believe that they're doing that thing, or are you gonna be like, that sounds like a false positive maybe? So I think that's the real thing that Samurai and similar tools are doing. It's this like plausible deniability that these tools kind of suck. So any little edge might be able to kind of prevent them from being useful.
That makes sense. When I went to a hacker type meetup. There were like blue hats and red hats there, or like blue team, red team is what they were calling it. And it sounded like some of the red team, the ones that were taking the like attacking side to build up these security systems. They try really low level attacks, like are the passwords password 123 or 1 2 3 4 5 6, and they would probably start with that, but if your password was sufficiently long, like they'd just give up after a period of time. Or I could tell like, oh, okay, like their Wi-Fi is, still says Netgear on it. Whereas like one that is like customized, it tells you, okay, this person has some knowledge, and I can see, oh, they're using a VPN. So maybe this person isn't even worth my time, just in order to investigate someone's history. So similarly, maybe if we're just incorporating some of these privacy tools or privacy preserving tools, that we might blend into the crowd a little bit more. For say, for example, using Ricochet, and it just becomes a little bit more confusing. They would really have to justify the expense of investigating the history of our transactions.
Right. So from a exchange perspective, that's a huge one, because looking at every single account that might transact on Coinbase is absolutely not a scalable activity. That's millions of accounts. So you can't. It would be impossible. You would have to hire thousands and thousands of people, and even then, you're going to make mistakes and miss stuff. So, yeah, like anything that you can do to kind of make yourself not be the low-hanging fruit, pretty much makes you so you're invisible to Chainalysis, because you're a needle in a haystack at that point.
Yeah, and ideally a needle in 10,000 haystacks. Do you want to talk about pivot this conversation into what it looks like on Lightning, and we can talk about the privacy status and what transactions look like on Lightning versus on-chain?
Absolutely. So I think the most basic thing to point out here is there is no blockchain for them to analyze exactly here. So in this case, they're still, and they even said it in their article, they're still just looking at the Bitcoin blockchain and analyzing that. They probably aren't going to get much information from the Lightning Network side, at least in the short term, as far as I know. Anyone out there that wants to correct me on that, please feel free. And also, as I'm saying that, anyone that wants to join us up here and ask a question or make a comment, please feel free. This also is true of those on YouTube as well. But yeah, so Lightning. I'm probably not an absolute expert on privacy on Lightning. I know privacy on Lightning in general is kind of questionable, thanks to Anthony Ronning writing that one blog post, kind of laying things out there. If anyone listening hasn't read that yet, I'm pretty sure you can Google Anthony Ronning Lightning Network privacy and find it. But yeah, go ahead.
That was a fantastic article by Anthony Ronning, and it was on the state of privacy on the Lightning Network. Maybe it'd be good to talk about like what you can determine from a Lightning transaction. So like when it starts, like there's an on-chain activity. So you're going to be spending some UTXOs in order to open a channel. And so those UTXOs have a history. And then in the future, there's going to be sort of the payout transaction when you're closing a channel. And so that means that you'd be receiving a payment, provided you still have some balance left in the channel. And then your channel peer would be receiving some amount. So you'd be seeing kind of the beginning balance of this 2 of 2 multi-sig in this that is a channel open, and then you would see a payout in the future. And so in between those two events, there could be thousands of transactions, millions of transactions. There's essentially no limit to it. But what is clear at a good observer of the blockchain might be able to determine, okay, they started with this amount and then they ended with this amount. So, with that, like it's not quite clear what happened. But when you're looking at the Lightning Network and the gossip, which we can explore on Amboss, my Lightning Network Explorer, or our Lightning Network Explorer, is that you can see from the Lightning Network gossip who you're opening a channel with. So like each of those nodes have somewhat of an identity. You'd be able to see, okay, there's an association here between this node and this node. However, the transactions in between those two nodes are not shared with the rest of the network, as opposed to the Bitcoin blockchain, where every single transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain is announced to all of the nodes on the blockchain. Whereas in the Lightning Network, in a channel, those individual transactions are only known by those two parties that are involved in the channel, and those aren't broadcast to the rest of the network. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think the implications are for like the fungibility, or how does that kind of frame things for privacy of the Lightning Network?
So where my mind went kind of talking about that, it made me think of the Tor network. So I'm sure everyone here hopefully knows what Tor is. If not, it's the onion relay, basically a way to kind of gain data privacy by, sending your data through multiple hops, very similar to Lightning in a certain respect, because Lightning uses onion messages. But something that I would point out is on Tor, Tor is considered largely pwned at the moment, because people think that there are nation states opening a stupid amount of relays, nodes, exit nodes, and we're just trying to sniff the entire network. Now, I think again, I'm not an expert, just a podcast person, but it's my understanding that something similar could work with the Lightning Network. That if, nation states or whoever wanted to spend the time to open enough nodes to have enough liquidity on the network, we have, whatever nation state buying hundreds of Bitcoin to, open up a bunch of nodes and, actually provide liquidity on the network. I think that is probably more of something that I'm quote unquote scared of or nervous about than anything that Chainalysis is really doing. I think Chainalysis is kind of a joke at the end of the day. But if Chainalysis took the time to actually do that, opening a bunch of nodes, putting a bunch of money on the network, basically becoming LN Big, LN Big might be this too, honestly. People have been saying this ever since he threw money onto the network, that he might be a spook and just trying to sniff everyone's traffic, because wouldn't that be the best way to kind of get over that hump? Is if you're basically half the network or even more, maybe, I don't know the exact percentage of the network you need to be to make this work, but between like traffic analysis that they do on Tor and things like that, I wonder if they really took that move, if we would be really screwed at that point, and what defenses we would really have if they're able to just watch the transactions on the Lightning Network itself.
So that's a pretty interesting question, because I almost think about it in the terms of, like, you have to 51% attack the Lightning Network. Like, what would that look like? So basically, you would have to be laying out the infrastructure for all of these payment rails, and you would have to have bidirectional liquidity. So say you've got a ton of Bitcoin. Like right now, there's 3,455 Bitcoin on the public Lightning Network, and there are 17,000 nodes. So you're going to have to come up with a whole bunch of funds and connect them to as many nodes as you possibly can, and figure out how to allocate those Bitcoin so that you can both receive and send payments. And be able to, from that, you would be able to observe, okay, a payment is originating from here and it's going someplace else. But you can't guarantee that a payment is actually going to use your channel unless maybe you could be the cheapest route. But then you're going to have to compete with all of the other nodes that are on the network that may also want to provide cheap routes, and they're going to be fighting for this traffic. So it's going to be an interesting way to kind of play it out, because if you want to be the spy of the network, you're going to have to outcompete everyone else on the network and be cheaper than them and more reliable than the thousands of plebs that are firing up umbrals. And from what I've noticed so far, like from running a Raspberry Pi, like I was like 11th on the entire Lightning Network running a Raspberry Pi as far as like most reliable nodes, which is absolutely crazy to me that a hobbyist can compete at that level. But you have to wonder, like, if the Chainalysis companies are wanting to watch the Lightning Network, they would have to outcompete me that doesn't really care about making a ton of money off of my routing node. I'm just enjoying connecting to fellow plebs and watching the transactions kind of go through, but not gathering a history on it.
Yeah, I struggle to think that their public face, they're going to announce this is how we're going to surveil the Lightning Network. Just write it down, everyone. Get ready for it. Like, that's definitely not within their interest to broadcast exactly what they're doing. Them putting down like Chainalysis on their little article about it, is an easy way to kind of talk about it and be like, yeah, we're added that. There's obviously things we can analyze about the Lightning Network. And just as a reminder, the IRS is trying to put money down to surveil the Lightning Network, but from what I remember, it was only like $100,000. Now, let's take on this idea that I had that we're going to kind of surveil the network, kind of traffic analysis or something. Do you think $100,000 is going to be enough to pull that off?
In that 51% attack, that's about $200 million that they would need to put down just to compete from my thinking. So that would be opening channels to every node on the network at a size that would contain payments that you're concerned about. So these wouldn't be the coffee payments, but they would be like I don't know, payments used for nefarious activities. So I guess if you're asking the IRS, it's like the price of a couch, the $600 level. So that would be, I don't really see $100,000 being able to adequately surveil the Lightning Network in any meaningful capacity.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think $100,000 is going to produce you a software that's going to, do something similar. There's better ways to spend $100,000 in that respect, it seems like. So, just for a quick reminder for the audience, if you have a question, a comment, don't be afraid to request speaker privileges or ask your question on YouTube, etc. But so it seems like, these spooks, the IRS, Chainalysis, they want on Lightning. They see the future of Lightning. They see the writing on the wall. So if their basic Chainalysis isn't going to do anything, and they may or may not be willing to spend, millions upon millions of dollars just to give themselves a decent place to do their traffic analysis, I'm honestly unsure if they're going to be able to get any meaningful information from the Lightning Network itself. Is it going to be a tool that they're going to use to kind of de-anonymize Bitcoin transactions or otherwise make them easier to track? Because I'm sure, some people might use Lightning Network transactions as a kind of ad hoc coin join or coin swap or whatever. You can't be really sure who owns that UTXO anymore, right? So I'm not sure if that's like a slam dunk thing to do, but maybe it's just as simple as that. They just want to reduce the effectiveness of such a tool, and they want to try to spend the money to do it. I honestly don't know.
That's a good question. And what came out of Anthony Ronning's article were a couple of things in my mind, which is mainly don't use your own UTXOs when starting a node. So by doing that, you can kind of break the link between your identity that you might have acquired by going through some KYC exchange and like your actual node. So you can maintain a somewhat different identity as a node than your real life personhood. And so in order to do that, you could start a node, and instead of opening channels or putting your own money into the node at first, what you can do is just buy channels from LNBig or one of these other groups that actually sell channels, and be able to sort of fill up your node with value through the Lightning Network instead. So that would be a channel opened by another entity connecting to your node. So it wouldn't really be clear who was operating this node, since all of the UTXOs came from elsewhere to open the channel. So that would be another strategy.
Go ahead.
Take it away.
Sorry, but I was just kind of wanting to kind of bring it back all together here. So we were previously talking about exchanges and what exchanges might do in the course of their business, relating to Chainalysis here. So let's think about, let's say Strike, of all businesses, adds Chainalysis for Lightning. I don't think they're really going to do that anytime soon, but let's say they do, just for the easy example here. So in what context are they going to be using Chainalysis most likely? So let's think about there being, just for the sake of the example here, Lightning Spin is a pretty well-known gambling website that uses Lightning. Is it going to be marked down as a gambling website? Probably not. But let's just say for this example that it is. So let's say you send, $100 to Lightning Spin directly with your Strike wallet. In this case, Chainalysis might send them alert saying this node key has been marked as a gambling establishment. So in that sense, it would be easier for them to be able to do kind of analysis of different node keys, because the node keys don't really change. So like if I have a node for Lightning Junkies, unless I'm, literally shutting down the wallet and creating a new one every so often, involving closing channels, reopening them, resetting my reputation, all of that. I don't know how I prevent that pub key from being static, basically. There's ways to kind of use Tor and such, but I think even that Tor, even your node key still stays static, and I think your onion address, your hidden service, I think that might stay the same. That might change, but your node key still stays the same. So it doesn't really matter if your Tor address changes. So what do you think about that? Isn't that kind of much more of the privacy loss here? Strike already knows where you're sending your Bitcoin or your Lightning transaction. In this case, not really talking about on-chain, but do you think that's much more of the privacy hole here, that unless you're doing multiple hops for your Lightning node, maybe sending it to your my wallet, a Satoshi wallet, and then my node, or what have you?
No, that's a good point, because when you're sending a Lightning payment, what you do know is the node public key that is the destination. So from that information, if you were trying to pay directly to a gambling site, Strike could say, this node public key is associated with gambling. I don't want to process this payment. And maybe flag the account. So as an alternative, what you could do is you could run your own node and pay directly to your own node. Or, as you suggested, which might even be a better alternative, pay to some custodial wallet like Blue Wallet or Wallet of Satoshi, and then make a payment to your preferred gambling site or your own node. So those would all be intermediate steps, which might upset the ability for an exchange to say, hey, this destination is a problem, the one that you're paying to or planning to pay to.
So it seems like it's, again, the low-hanging fruit are the ones that Chainalysis and these other companies are going to find, the people that don't know that they're doing this and are just naive about what they're doing with Bitcoin.
Yeah, that sounds accurate.
And so I brought up Rob. Do you have a question or comment you'd like to make, Rob?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, guys. First of all, fantastic conversation. I love that you're talking about this, and great thoughts. And actually, some of the things that you were saying just a minute ago kind of like spurred an idea for me that I wanted to maybe get your opinions on, get your thoughts on, and that is, there could be organizations like the IRS, like Chainalysis, like state actors that are wanting to, open nodes and participate in these channels so that they can, do some kind of monitoring activity. And while the cost to actually acquire Bitcoin and do this might be extremely capital intensive and prohibitive, it's possible that because of all these custodial services, like, I don't know, Celsius and BlockFi and others, that maybe rather than like actually acquire the coins, they could just borrow them and pay just small carry costs. And as a result of that, in the typical way that governments do, kind of leverage debt as a way of getting a very large amount of assets with a very small amount of carry cost, just paying the interest on those coins, and then attempt to get a bigger footprint into a network like this, which I guess is, just one more of 1,000 reasons why, like, holding your own keys as opposed to using this custodians is so important for the aggregate privacy and effectiveness of the network. But anyways, thanks for your comments, and I wonder if maybe I could hear your thoughts on whether something like that, whether you think that might be an effective approach for them as well.
So that's actually a really good idea, except I would question it on the basis of, if they're going to do this, they're probably going to do it for a long period of time. Could they borrow like tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin for years? Probably, I guess. And so my naive sense here is, okay, they have millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin now. Are they just going to just go and open like 100 channels or 1,000 channels very naively? I would, maybe I'm giving them too much credit right now, so let's put that out there. But like, would they slowly integrate themselves into the network? Again, like, I'm bringing up LN Big. Nothing against LN Big, but he's just one very easy to pick on. So, like, could he be a spook? Because he was very, he kind of put his money onto the network. He's trying to get more people to have, him open channels to them. To me, that's who I would want to be. If I was the IRS, if I was trying to be strategic, I would be Ellen Big. I would be a nice guy. I'd be a friendly guy. I'd be a helpful guy, and try to kind of put that money into the network over a long period of time, and try to kind of treat my thing like a business. So people are more likely to connect with me and see me as innocuous or even positive. So, like, let's take that on as a possibility for a moment. Like, you were giving, Ellen Big as advice earlier. Wouldn't that be the most perfect way to fuck people than, appear to be a friendly actor, and in the end are actually just doing traffic analysis on everybody?
Interesting. So, like, I could see someone borrowing a whole bunch of money and buying Bitcoin with it, and in the process, speculatively attacking the dollar in order to do some lightning chain analysis. But in doing so, they would have to take on a whole bunch of fees in order to open all of these channels. And then they would have to underprice everyone else on the network, which just looking at the pricing of channels on the Lightning Network, one thing that I've noticed is that the people that are running routing nodes today or running Lightning nodes aren't pricing their channels to be profitable, to pay for both the open the open and the closed transaction. So even if all of the liquidity moves from one side to the other side of a channel, they won't recover the 300 sats or however much they paid for the channel open and the channel close. So if a state actor or someone wanting to do surveillance wants to be able to get all the information on the transactions that are going from point A to point B, they would have to underprice a network that is already not priced for profit. So this is a money losing activity. So I'm not super bullish on the idea that someone would be able to do this in a sustainable way. But as a side effect of them attempting to do this, they would create a fantastic payment network, which would seriously undercut Visa and other payment methods or remittances.
I went ahead and I added opt out to the stage. Do you want to ask a question or comment on what we're talking about?
That was a great question, Rob. Really appreciate it.
So I guess I'm not hearing from opt out for whatever reason. So kind of continuing that same conversation there. So yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess it depends on how much they want this information. Is it worth like spending all this money and losing money like ongoing just to perhaps recover some tax loss, some people that are maybe engaging in tax evasion or whatever? I guess it would really need to depend on how much money they think they're losing. Or if it's not the IRS, I guess it could be just someone wanting to, restrict freedoms or otherwise surveil just to surveil. Not sure.
Yeah, it would be very, very difficult because you would have to like be the preferential route, and right now there's over 17,000 nodes on the network, so like the payments could fly anywhere between those nodes. If they have a direct channel, then there's really no reason to use some intermediary service, some intermediary hop that's just watching this thing. And right now the connections on the Lightning Network go all sorts of different directions. So what's the likelihood that one node is going to be the intermediate hop? I mean, LNBig is actually not that great for routing, even though they have a ton of liquidity deployed. When I'm looking at my routes that I'm taking, it's actually pretty infrequent that my node uses an LNBig node, even though like I don't have a direct channel with them, and kind of generally avoid them.
You're avoiding them because they're a spook. I knew it.
I do enjoy my LNBig mug, which they were handing out at El Salvador, so I'm clearly biased in this.
That's fair, but yeah, so you're making some good points, though, about LNBig not being that popular overall. Maybe popular for kind of newbies getting started because it is so easy and cheap, relatively speaking, to have him open up a channel to you. He's just an easy person to question and to kind of hypothetically lay blame on, or you know what I mean, as a model for what these Chainalysis or IRS or nation states or et cetera, might want to do. Because I have a hard time imagining nation states bothering with a full frontal attack. They're going to do something that destroys things in a very friendly, happy way. But on the back end, they're like burning things to the ground, if that makes sense.
Interesting. One of the other ones that I might flag for that was probably Bcash is trash. that's a huge node and is actually quite a good routing node. And I might look at that one as one that might just blend into the crowd that people wouldn't maybe notice, could be a potential surveillance node. But yeah, it's good to keep an eye out for. I mean, as from running a Lightning Network Explorer, you can kind of see these capacity changes. So if someone were to deploy a whole bunch of liquidity today on the Lightning Network in order to find out about payments moving through, I think people would notice for the most part. But at the stage we're at, Preston Pish can tweet out his link to his node, and he can become the fastest growing node on the network. So, and I don't think Preston Pish is really a surveillance type guy. Maybe he is. Who knows? But I kind of doubt it. But we're able to kind of watch these nodes get really popular, have a large capacity increase. Now for Preston Pish, a whole bunch of people are connecting to him, so he's getting a whole bunch of inbound capacity, and I'm not sure how much funds he's actually deploying himself, which that would be what would be needed in order to be sort of that in-between hop. You need to have both local capacity and remote capacity. So you need the network to connect to you just as much as you need to connect to the network.
So what it sounds like, this Amboss.space thing is just another Chainalysis. We're going to have to kick your ass, Jestopher.
It's all part of the plan.
I knew it. Damn spook. But in all seriousness, though, like, you guys take in a good amount of information. So aren't you guys almost a kind of de facto, not chain analysis, because you're not really looking at the blockchain exactly, but you're kind of taking in all this information and, you know, examining it and seeing what information you can get. Isn't that what Chainalysis is doing?
In some respects, I think like Chainalysis is going to be being able to, like, say deterministically that, or with some conviction that, hey, this is nefarious activity that's happening, and be able to block transactions because of it, or go pursue an arrest of something. What we're dealing with on Amboss is all public information, but we are tracking changes to nodes in a time series fashion. So, like, as routing nodes, like, we find that information really important, because how has a node performed over time? I think the routing nodes are our customers, so being able to deliver information that they care about, from both an economic perspective and a social perspective, those are key motivators for what we're doing, and we get a lot of support from, like, the routing node communities. So, like, those are our customers. That's where we're getting funding, and we do want to be able to provide additional information that isn't just available publicly. I think that's, like, key from a business perspective, and developing those things is pretty important, because you do want to have some additional competitive edge as a routing node. So we will be, like, developing some of those things that would be able to piece together some transaction or flow information, but it's really important to us that we're not taking information without users' consent, and that goes for the analytics that we're using to visit the site. So, say for example, 1ML uses Google Analytics, which is pretty privacy invasive, whereas we don't have very detailed analytics on the users of our site, and like a bunch of users they use our site via Tor. So it's important to us that the privacy of the users be protected, and not try and dive into their details and say what they're doing is nefarious.
Just want to let you know that the J+1 is shouting out Amboss on YouTube. Has been such a great tool for us node runners.
Awesome. So thanks for using the platform. Yeah, I'm such a fan of our users. It's been really fun to be leading this.
So that's one thing that I want to go ahead and kind of ask about. So, 1ML is known for kind of recording your Lightning node alias over time. And, back when people were first starting their Lightning nodes, maybe when Casa had their node out at first, people would just go name their thing, my full name is Bob Smith. Let me name my node that. And, attach it to my home internet address or my home IP address. And so, everyone's happy now. And then, next week they realize that that's not private. So they change their node name to, bcashsucks.com, whatever. But because of 1ML, you can go back and look at the history of, that's what their IP address used to be. That's their home address before they got Tor capability. And his name is Bob Smith. I know exactly who that is. I can go over here and da-da-da-da-da-da. So, is there more gotchas on kind of just basic privacy things on the Lightning Network that the absolute newbie is going to kind of get themselves shot in the foot over, especially with these, websites like 1ML, Amboss, that kind of record information over time?
It's a good point. Like 1ML is gathering public information that your node is broadcasting over gossip. So be particularly mindful of as always, be mindful about the information that you're broadcasting. And for one, that would be your alias, and also like your node public key. So I think common sense, which I'm hoping is common enough, but please don't put any private information as your alias. And if possible, use Tor to run your Lightning Network node. You can still be a very competitive node by using Tor. So that way will protect your IP address, and if you can avoid putting private information in your alias, that would help protect the privacy of your node. Now, if you, for some reason, mess up and maybe put your seed phrase as your alias, I might recommend that you shut down your node immediately, and protect those funds. If you do make a mistake and you put something in your alias, like you can come talk to us at Amboss in our Telegram chat, or reach out via email if you want. And you can say, hey, I messed up and I shouldn't have put that private information in the alias. And we could delete that from your history. However, one, we want to keep the information intact as much as possible. And two, everyone else on the network also has that information if they're maintaining a database of this. And anyone can do that. They don't have to make it public like 1ML. Anyone can run a database and start recording this information. but it is a bit costly to do. So keep that in mind, that while we might be able to delete it from our database and not make it public, anyone else could still maintain that data.
Yeah, good point there. So kind of moving beyond kind of that here, I might actually do a quick ad read, guys, so don't kill me. I'm just going to talk about Lightning Junkies really fast here. Lightning Junkies is the best Lightning Network podcast in the two universes. We're probably going to take the rest of the year off after this today, but we will return in 2022, maybe with a third show that we'll be launching at that point. Lightning Friday is also hosted by Zeus Wallet. Zeus Wallet is a mobile wallet that would allow you to use whatever Lightning Network node you might have. So if you have C Lightning, LND, Eclair, or if you're even rocking LND Hub, you can actually grab Zeus on iOS, Android, and be able to access your home node and be able to make good use of it. Zeus and Evan are doing a lot of work on getting it to look a lot better and to add functionality. Right now, he's adding NFC capability, not NFT, not NFT. He's gonna kill me. We added NFC capability, so eventually you'll be able to just scan a Lightning invoice with your phone and not have to worry about that bright El Zante sun making it so you can't scan your QR codes. And I think we already talked about Amboss.space, the best Lightning Network Explorer out there. So if you need a Lightning Network Explorer, don't bother with any of the other guys. Amboss.space. Okay, that was our ad read. That was pretty fast, right? Okay. So I'm not sure if I had too much else on my side. Did you have anything else on your side, or did the audience have any questions or comments about Chainalysis, about Lightning Network privacy, or anything like that?
All right. Looking pretty good on that front. I did want to share a bit about LNURL. I was, let's see, Carrot is working on adding LNURL functionality to their platform, and maybe quick shill. Let's see, I do work on for Carrot. Part-time to help run their routing node and deal with payment failures. It is a cool way to be able to actually like read articles. So you can download the Carrot app and be able to like read Bitcoin Magazine articles, and you get paid some sats for doing that. And there's also Carrot codes that you can get and redeem for sats. So it's a pretty cool platform. I've really been enjoying getting people started on it. You know, my mom, for example, she's reading articles using the app and getting paid in some sats. So pretty cool platform. But in doing that, I was testing out LNURL and seeing which wallets are actually capable of dealing with LNURL. And I found out that there's actually a whole bunch of them. So I was using like Blue Wallet and Moon and Phoenix, and also I was really pleasantly surprised to see that Zeus already has LNURL functionality. So I was able to scan an LNURL and pay it from using my non-custodial node that was connected to with Zeus, and be able to pay things. So really cool. I just wanted to share that while we're waiting to see if anybody wants to join and ask a question.
So Well, just to kind of keep going with that a little bit, there's multiple different ways a wallet could be compatible with LNURL. You could have LNURL pay, LNURL withdrawal, I believe, LNURL auth, I believe, and maybe a couple others that are slipping my mind a bit here.
Yeah, I think those are the three that come to mind first. So I believe I was using the pay functionality. So that enables me to actually scan a static QR code and be able to get an invoice to pay thanks to that LNURL. Whereas before, what you would need to do is generate an invoice manually and send that to the person that wants to pay you just in order to receive those funds. Whereas LNURL kind of makes it so that you're communicating with a server and can generate an invoice on the fly. So you don't have to have a separate conversation just to get an invoice to pay. So huge improvement as far as user experience goes.
And I guess since we're talking about LNURL, we might as well mention Lightning Address. That was the last major episode of Lightning Junkies, was with Andre and Fiat Jaff, who are both working on Lightning Address and LNURL. And, adding all this functionality in there. So if anyone's not aware what Lightning Address is, that's basically a way to kind of to have an alias that you can use instead of using a large string. You can just use, for example, Chaz at lightningjunkies.net, and that will, send some sats over. Technically, I think it's Chaz at btcpay.lightningjunkies.net, because it's hard to get the exact domain that you want if you're using your subdomain to access your BTC Pay server. Anyway, I really like Lightning Address for that reason, that you don't need to worry about invoices in that way. That, again, just like with what you're talking about with LNURL Pay, a invoice is grabbed on the fly whenever you use Lightning Address, and all that stuff is handled between the servers that are kind of involved there. Kind of handles it all for you. So that's kind of nice. I really like the kind of continually added functionality, user-friendly functionality. You'll hear in that episode that I have talked shit about aliasing stuff for years. I'm sure you guys have heard of Netkey, and if you haven't, it's a piece of shit. So don't worry about it. Very, very shitcoinery. You'll see them at all the conferences, though, and you'll never know why they're still there. But that's pretty much it as far as LNURL and Lightning Address goes. I'm probably going to put out another, if anyone else has any questions or any comments, either here or on YouTube, please let us know. We might go for another 10, 15 minutes, but I think we might call it here because it looks like we're kind of running out of steam on our main topic here.
Yeah, it's I'm pretty bullish on people actually joining directly to Lightning now. I managed to get both of my parents onto Lightning this week, so that was pretty exciting. I had gotten them wallets before, and having them have to write down like 12 words, and there were a ton of questions. So that setup probably took an hour because there were a lot of questions. But directly to Lightning, that was quick. That was exciting. It's like, copy this code down, just text it to yourself. Get them started on a custodial wallet, but it's you got to start someplace. But it was pretty cool because the user experience is really, really improving thanks to LNURL, Lightning Address, and now we can have static QR codes. And also, maybe what you didn't highlight about Lightning Address is like this thing is human readable, so you can write this down, you can memorize it, whereas you can't memorize that an actual Lightning invoice or an LNURL. But just having that human readable stuff is great.
Sometimes I wonder, like that the whole idea of having my parents actually use Bitcoin and Lightning makes me want to jump out the closest fucking window, because my dad regularly calls me with help for emailing stuff. And so kind of walk us through that a little bit, because I'm kind of curious to know, was it a kind of very scary experience? Like, are you thinking, oh man, they're going to lose all their Bitcoin because they're going to take, make this mistake or that mistake, what have you?
Yeah, I think, part of the motivation for me is just making sure that if something ever happens to me, God forbid, that they would be able to recover the funds that I've accumulated. So, and be able to like carry on with my Bitcoin. So having that initial conversation about like inheritance, I think that was the big motivator for talking to them about on-chain addresses and holding your own keys and this type of thing. But when it comes to Lightning, like we're dealing with small funds. So like this is just going to be a fun exercise. Like, hey, can I show you this really cool thing? Now, like my parents tend to be the ones that are reading end user license agreements and saying, oh, wait a second, what are all these permissions that I have to give them? So initially I made the mistake of trying to get them signed up with an exchange. So that involved like a whole bunch of the KYC steps, which is like the most awkward part of getting people started with Bitcoin, because here you want to tell them about all this permissionless nature of things, and then like all this unstoppable currency stuff, and then like as part of the process you tell them, oh yeah, well now is where you scan your driver's license, and it's like, excuse me, what? I have to put down my social security number and date of birth and do all the KYC process, and that should not be part of like the Bitcoin experience, because you want to be able to like have this like secret savings account if you want, or like just program whatever you want and have this unstoppable money that no one needs to know about, and like you don't want anybody getting into your business. So going through the KYC process was not where I should have started. I've had good experiences before where I'll have someone buy me a beer and I'll just pay them for the beer using Bitcoin, and while I'm drinking that beer, then I can like set them up with a wallet and pay them for it, or for half of it, whatever the deal may be. So that's probably been my best experience. But for the Lightning stuff, I did want to demonstrate how you can fluidly move from, like, I can pay dollars, you can receive it as sats. And what I witnessed in El Salvador was other currencies are going to be, other companies are going to be enabling other currencies. So you could be able to switch from dollars to other currencies. And I'll just leave that as a teaser, but that's coming. And I did want to demonstrate that technology and be able to tell them, like, hey, maybe all of your bank stocks that you are holding on to, like maybe they're going to have to contend with this technology developing rapidly that has a far better user experience than any bank account setup. Like, you don't have to be sat down in this chair and talk to a banker and fill out all these forms. Like, no, it's just download an app, copy this code to yourself, and start receiving and transacting. I'm curious if like the next generation is going to experience just downloading Thunder games. They just came out with a new game, which I've been having some fun with, just a bubble type game, a bubble shooter. But getting paid in sats to play this cutesy game is a blast. So I hope that will be the experience in the future, where people are just joining directly into Lightning, and then they can learn all the detailed security pieces to actually protect this really valuable commodity that they're holding on to.
What do you think is the best way to onboard new people like your parents that may not have, all the conviction and all the technology knowledge behind them? What is the best use case to get them onboarded and actually get them using it, and not just, oh, that's cool, and never look at it again type thing?
Maybe for parents, that's tough because they're not into exactly the same stuff. But I did print out an LNURL for my parents. I got my mom onto Telegram, and so with the LNTX bot, if you just start a conversation, it will generate an LNURL for you. So I was telling them, like, hey, if you want to just like receive tips, or say, for example, you are a barista or someone, and you want to print out a static QR code, and then you can just receive Bitcoin tips by displaying this. So they just saw it as pretty like a cool way. So I'm going around this a weird way, but I got them started with Blue Wallet. It's like, just start them off custodial. I just need the easiest user experience possible. And to my knowledge, Blue Wallet has the absolute easiest user experience. I haven't tried out Simple Bitcoin Wallet, or that Simple Lightning Wallet. I forget the name of it. But I think that's the next one I want to try. I've gone through several of them. Wallet of Satoshi is also very easy to use. But I really like the Blue Wallet notifications.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how simple Bitcoin Wallet is. I downloaded it, and its interface makes me want to cry a bit. Sorry, Anton, but it does. But I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting topic. What was that app where you read news and earn sats? I think you know what that one is. I totally forget which one that is. Someone just asked that on our YouTube. Sorry.
Yeah, Carrot. So you can go to earncarrot.com, and disclosure, I do work for them. But I have been enjoying using the app, and you can read the Bitcoin Magazine articles, or whatever articles show up there, and start receiving some sats.
Thank you. That was Griffin Schwab asked that on YouTube. I appreciate your question there, Griffin. But yeah, like, the topic is just getting people onboarded directly onto Lightning. I feel like that for the majority of me having Lightning Junkies the show, the answer has kind of continued to be things like Fold. I'm not sure if they're really a good answer anymore, since I don't think you can really use a Lightning network going into them, at least not with Amazon anymore. And that was one of the easier, onboarding tools. But I think maybe at this point, getting someone onboarded to Strike, again, KYC less than ideal, but I think at least they only do light KYC. They don't ask for actual ID, as far as I remember. And then from there, you use Bit Refill, and boom, you get 5% savings on, or I mean 6% if you include the 1% on the Bit Refill side. So you save 6% on Amazon, even more right now, I think, on Instacart. I think they're doing a 15% on Instacart on Bit Refill. So there's I think that's the easiest way for me to onboard people, or I've been trying to onboard people that way, being like, you can save money if you use the Lightning Network. You don't need to care about Bitcoin. You don't need to, engage in all the ideology that Bitcoiners might have. Just buy some Bitcoin, use it to save some money, and you're good. And that's all you need to worry about, and just let that wash over you, kind of thing.
And at my last fiat job, I was I actually set up a Bitcoin store. So I was just like selling produce right there in the office, and I had a static QR code with a Bitcoin address. And I just put on there like, here's our store. You can put cash here, but I'll give you 10% off if you pay in Bitcoin. And it got so many people asking questions. And I did get several people to set up wallets, but then after that, everyone was making fun of me as the Bitcoin guy. And I remember like coming back from getting coffee, and they're like, "Oh, did you buy that with Bitcoin?" And I got to say like, "Oh, yeah, actually," because I spent Lightning and got the Starbucks gift card, and yeah, but they don't even know that you're spending Bitcoin, but you are saving money by doing that. So like just getting exposure to Bitcoin and through the Lightning Network, you can actually get quite a bit of savings. And that's like before you even get into like Bitcoin as savings. You can simply use the monetary network and be able to experience some of the benefits of this technology.
Yeah, like I think we've gone over this before, that custodial wallets obviously aren't our favorite. We would prefer if everyone was using, their own node with Zeus wallet. Yeah. But I think just getting people off of zero is a very important piece to this. Saying like, hey, dad, you have to run your own node. Oh, you want to run Wall of Satoshi? You're a piece of shit. Get away from me. No, that's silly. And we need to be friendly to new people. We need to be open. And even if that means them using less than optimal tools, like I said earlier, my dad has trouble like sending emails sometimes. So I wouldn't want to give him his own node. Like one of his first activities getting on the internet was finding a fake, like a scam Jordan's website and ordering scam Jordans that were the wrong size when he got them. And so that's kind of like a learning case there, right? Like where, okay, I am not going to touch that line again. I'm not going to get shocked by touching the outlet with wet hands again, whatever. So as much as I don't like these kind of less than ideal tools, I have to admit that they're very good at onboarding people. Like that's basically where I got started on the podcast. Was I invited, a lot of the custodial wallet people amongst Fold and Bitrefill to ask them about these things, because I still kind of see them as being the best hope to onboard millions of people in a short period of time and get them more acclimatized to this technology, like buying your friend a modem in the late 90s so they could, jump on the internet, or even getting them like an AOL disk, anything just to get them on the internet and get them off zero, kind of thing.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of just give them an easy start, and then as soon as they're started, then they might start to come back to you with questions and say, "Hey, like, oh, can I send this to my other wallet?" Or, "Well, I heard about this other service. Is Lolly a good thing, or is Fold? Like, what are those?" And so getting to entertain those questions in the future is always nice. If you can just start them off in a very easy, simple way and say like, "Hey, I'm starting you off on a custodial wallet, but you can grow from here. Now you're already started, but you can take more responsibility as you learn more." and be able to hold your own keys, get a hardware wallet, this type of thing. But that's for the future. You can just start now.
So one last topic on this topic before I move on here. So like, for example, your parents here, just to kind of use them as easy guinea pigs for this question. Do you think that you would, in the future, let's say they get super interested in Lightning, but just generally aren't interested in running their own node? What do you think the intermediate step is between those two worlds? Like, they don't want Wallet of Satoshi to hold their money anymore. What would their next move be?
It's so funny because my mom actually said she wanted to run a node the other day. And I was pleased as punch. It's part of this like 21 days of Bitcoin reading stuff. It's one of those Bitcoin magazine things, but basically she's going through this 21 days experience and reading about what are nodes, what are miners, this type of thing. That thing has been amazing. It's slowly orange pilling her, which I couldn't do over like 3 years of talking about this stuff nonstop. But the intermediate step, it would probably be like Blue Wallet or some custodial Lightning. And then I would go like, man, I don't know if you would go on chain from there. Well, Blue Wallet also has on chain, and that's non-custodial. Now, I think the next step is probably a hardware wallet, or get them started like buying Bitcoin. So Swan was a pretty easy onboarding. I think River might be oriented more towards like a traditional banking experience. So that might be better for like an older crowd. And then from there, it's like, okay, you're bought in, like you understand that like this technology is pretty cool, and maybe much better than anything you've experienced in the traditional finance system. So maybe you want to help contribute to making this infrastructure even more valuable, and kind of increase the value of your asset just by improving the infrastructure around it. So that's where you're going to contribute by running a node. You're going to be opening channels in the Lightning Network, and just getting connected, which is, there's sort of like a social element to it, and it's kind of the golden goose for me. I just love watching the nodes interact, open channels to each other, and develop their own personalities. So that's where it gets really fun for me, as someone that just loves networks.
Alrighty, this is going to be the super promised last call for questions and or comments. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to ask for speaker privileges or just ask your question on the YouTube. I think we're going to be wrapping up here if we don't get anything. I think this was a very good conversation. It's sad that we missed out on Evan, but I hear he's having a good time right now. So that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah, I wish I could be enjoying that with him. I heard he was going to be sliding down a mountain or something. So hope he's having a great time. But Chaz, I think you did a great job hosting. Thanks for leading this conversation. This was awesome.
Absolutely. So it looks like no one's scrambling to get on stage or asking questions at this point. So it looks like this shall be the end of Lightning Friday. I don't think we're going to be back next week. There's a chance, but it's pretty much a 0% chance. So we're not going to be back next week. Don't bother. There's a small chance we'll be back on the 31st, but you know, these Fridays happening on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve make them very unlikely days for these kinds of conversations. I think me and Kat are going to be doing some food cooking, doing a brisket maybe. So we'll have to start that a couple days early. But I think we're going to go ahead and end the show there. Thank you, Jestopher, for showing up. Thank you, Evan, for not. For now, I will see you all on the Lightning Network.